deeper and going after those specific words and finding the true common law definition to them, we find that the inheritance is the donors, the one that originally granted the grant. And that's why they start writing it like this now, is originally granting the grant and so on and so forth. Because by writing it originally granting the grant, if you didn't know that you were the donor and that you have this true inheritance, and if you followed your government law and the law of equity, the monarchy is the one that's assumed to be the one that grants you this. So when we see that jurisdiction depends on the assumed laws for the assumed owner of things, is one of the biggest issues that we have now, because it's all pretty much just assumed. And we can trace every part of it because it's in all the actual common law books that are written, especially before 1600. To get to the real nitty-gritty of this stuff, you should pretty much start at 1600s and just work your way through today, and it'll literally be fast, because the law of let's say the law of property 1925 does not tell you where it gets its authority from. Right? You kind of see what I'm getting at? But when you start at the very beginning with the law that created it, it takes you to it automatically because they tell you, if that makes sense, right? Because it's actually creating it in that law. So it's telling you right there that they've done this and it's given this power and so on and so forth. So then you just have to keyword search the words that for that area of law that they've created, and now you'll notice that all of a sudden after 1600s we have popping up what's called master and servant, law of master and servant, and then it changed to principal and agent and contract and tort, and now it's to law of agency. And also same with all these other laws of these specific areas, because they're specific areas of equity and they were only created for equity. So people that are reading law of property, law of agency, and all these other things, they're reading the assumed law for the equity that assumes that the monarchy is the donor and that you accepted these things and that you know all about them as well, right? That you're not ignorant of any of this law from 1600s from today, right? It assumes that you are, I guess, a Superman in law and you've read every single law book in history, right? And that you're not ignorant of any of this. That's basically the assumption that English law takes, because they granted freedom in the Bill of Rights, 1688. Right? Wow. So you can see that they made everybody into a corporate person in 1666, then released everybody in 1688, and then that takes a choice, because now you're free, so now you have the free choice. So unless you actually, and that's when you see contingency written in law, that's what they're talking about. That's your choice. That means you have to choose to do a certain thing, to have a certain thing happen, right? So, yeah, it gets very deep very fast, and the truth of it comes out once we start looking in the actual common law. Because and this is from Commentaries upon Littleton, and this is basically stating that your indenture is your remittance. I'm just going to drop that in real fast because I wanted to get to that deed poll thing real quick.
How long do these calls usually go on for so that people listen to them, or what do you like? I know it doesn't really matter, but...
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think Justin probably just went to sleep, and he'll probably just leave it recording for us, probably, or something like that. And then he'll just edit it after. Because Justin does all the recording for me, so that's probably what. Oh, here he is.
I am here, lads. Yeah. I was letting you kind of explain because there's obviously, once again, you've explained like the basics, and I've picked up a few new things again. But for the most of, I've understood what you've gone through, and most of the questions that have come through, the answer that popped in my head is the same one you've given. So it's good that I'm feeling that way. I do want to go back to, I think it was Andy that gave you the question at the beginning about how we're going to live once we've claimed our lands. Do you mind going through that quickly?
It's basically your individual choice. It's really what you believe in.
More so in regards to like, say if we claim like 10 acres of land, it's quite a big amount of land to have to manage yourself. Do you know what I mean? To keep on top of, like, is there any like, because I noticed Justin mentioned before about the weeds growing and stuff, and if you're not taking care of the lands, can the king seize that and use the excuse of it looks neglected, if you will, or deserted?
Even if they did come and try to take them back, as soon as they did, you'd just be going right to the courts and saying,
yeah.
Right?
So really, it's just however tidy you want to keep it, then, really.
Yeah, you'd be going to the judge and saying, you guys have overstepped your jurisdiction once again, and that is a re-decision. And I'll post this because this is extremely powerful. Re-decision is, if they do it a second time, it's bad. like really bad. Because you got to remember, this by us wanting our estate back and them not getting it is the worst possible injury in common law and equity. It is worse than murder. They're basically stating it because you are enslaved, they can rape you daily over do. And why I try to get people to look at the whole thing before they actually start acting, so they're not putting themselves into hard positions. Right? And what we would do when we get out is really up to you. If you wanted 10 acres, you can have 10 acres. If you want to be completely self-sustained, you can be. Right? It really depends on what you learn, what your direction is, and the people that you want to deal with. Because this path is basically going to be you choosing what you create for your own self. So,
what does it look like for, say, if we want work done for tradesmen that are still in equity, so, to like, help us build a land or do whatever, do we have to put in a treaty or something to deal with the Queen's subjects?
No, you just deal with them, and they got what agreement you make, whatever you agree to pay them, you gotta honor it.
Yeah.
Right.
So when does it change then from? Because obviously, like if I wanted my family to sit on the lands or live on a house or dwelling that might be on the lands, wouldn't I have to have an agreement in place with them to say, look, I'm not taking on any of the connections with your king or agreements that you've got with your king? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Pretty much, you just have to make sure that you don't grant them your lands. They cannot have lands or anything else. You can get into agreement with them that you understand that they're acting in the capacity that they are, and that under no circumstances
does that need to be written?
Oh yeah, I'd be getting into a written agreement with them, so they actually have to sign it and everything else. And
Literally just coming to be on the lands. I don't own it. They're letting me stay here, type thing.
that's right. And they don't have any authority over it or anything whatsoever. And what you say goes.
Yeah.
You are the subject. They are your subject. Right? So, because let's face it, they have the right to go and claim their own lands right beside you and be the same as you. So if they don't want to do those things, you have to protect yourself from the king acting as them.
Yeah.
Right? So if you don't give them that authority, then the king don't have it.
Yeah.
So right, and that kind of brings us to more things about your interactions. You'll have to choose who you interact with, what you want to purchase, and everything else. Right? Just like if you decide you want to purchase lands and go back into the matrix, that's your choice.
Mm.
You kind of see what I'm getting at? So it really all depends on and that's the catch to freedom. Everybody has their own choice of freedom, and that's why we can't even destroy their system, because then we would be injuring them. They chose it so they can have it. They just can't force us to be a part of it. Right?
So you can't mess with another person's jurisdiction just because you don't agree with it.
That's right. And then once we're out, anything that they hold, if we really want it that bad, and you don't want it, right, you can go to the courts and make a claim and get it turned over to you. It's that. You don't even have to use money. I believe that the only reason why they're giving you such a great, big, huge fictional amount of money is because this way when you do get out, you're not going to be writing writ of waste for your loaf of bread and things like that. You've got $40 million, you're not going to care. It's going to be easier for you to go and pay that buck, or if you want that truck or something, you're just going to go and buy it, right? Instead of taking the bullshit hassle of going and making a claim, right? Giving them notice and all that.
Because obviously you're going to be an established donor once you have obviously claimed your land. So the revenue that's being collected, or the fee, should I say, from the use of all the people still, all the fee simple subjects still, is there like a yearly amount dividend that keeps getting paid to you, because essentially that waste is still going on whilst you're alive and you're aware of it, aren't you?
No, because it's only the waste for your lands that you put in. So when you take your lands out, if you choose 10 acres, then you choose 10 acres.
So whatever goes on all of the other lands, regardless of you having that superior title, you don't have anything to do with that.
That's right. If you're not claiming lands
until you claim it.
That's right. If you're not going to claim the lands, then you can't have any of the things attached to it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why in the uses and trust it's written that way too, about decisor and being right, decission, right, and the differences between them, because one is where no one is challenging the title and they're okay to be there, and the other one is where the title is challenged and they're not giving it up.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where the injury comes in, because if you make whatever you make a claim to, if they have to do that thing, when they don't do it, when you give them proper notice, is the injury. There is no injury if you don't give notice and they don't do it. See what I'm getting at? So that's why when you're reading this stuff, it's always you got to give notices and so on and so forth, right? And then and those notices is what we file in the courts as notice to admit. So then they have to admit getting them. So then they have to admit ignoring them, or coming after you in some malicious manner. You see what I'm getting at? So when we actually see the process and get the big picture and how it all works, these are all for our protection, right? And it's because they have to do what's required.
Would a notice be written in the form of a writ always, or can it just be a notice?
Well, I have on omnipotence in the forum, I've already got the revocation and the releases for the different capacities already pretty much done on the site. I use the actual wordings from the writs. Because in court, there is no actual form for the writ anymore. You just write it into your claim in a summary fashion. It just has to state the things that it states in the writ. So by doing the exact writ to the one that you're giving notice to, I find that it gives everything in it gives everything in a way that we're not going to be divulging any private information if they're not allowed to have it or anything else, right? Because you got to remember the fee simple. They're not allowed to know anything about your private trust between you and the donor. They don't have any privity to it at all. So we got it. So there's kind of a fine line there. So that's why I like in those areas when it's something like that, I like to use what's actually been written in the actual law books exactly, because the claims are kind of right the way the administration of law is written now for the actual administration of law for the courts. We're kind of stuck in an exact thing that is required. So I like to do that exact same thing by just using the writs as a form of a notice, especially when you're claiming lands from the tenant that's holding the lands that you're claiming from. I actually use the actual writ itself as the notice, right? This way I make sure that I got everything in there that is required by law to be in it, so they can't say, oh, this isn't recognized because you left out this word. You kind of see what I'm getting at? Like, it seems like once we get to this point, that's almost all that they have left is to nitpick at things that are ridiculous. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you asked about a deed poll and stuff. I posted, this is from the Laws of Conveyancing. It's also on Omnipotence.
Is this the
well, this is for that deed poll that you were talking about. What is a deed poll and stuff?
You posted something with that starts as remitter as an ancient term in law.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. Okay, exactly. So the remitter is, you'll notice that when you're reading about the actual common law land tenure and the two different title, the one title that gets split into two, you got to remember that when you're fee simple, you have a title, an equitable title that has a fee attached to it. And then there's the assumed title that the monarchy's holding. So when you do the releases and these things in law, what you're actually doing is you're remitting your indenture to take these two titles and bring them back into one. So basically, you're taking the use from the use side, and you're taking the assumed ownership from the other side, and you're putting them back together into one, so you can hold both ownership and possession, right? And that goes into that dual right thing, right, where the two different areas of law, right, two different property laws. One is a use, and one is the actual real, like real and personal, right? See what I'm getting at? It keeps the same flow through every single jurisdiction. There's always two areas of property law, right? Where one is just a use, and one the assumed owner has the ownership. And you'll notice that it's in this remitter. It goes into for his elder title, right? For the remittance and him, and that's because you can trace your lineage because of that live record of birth. This is also twofold, because people can also just come into the jurisdiction, like how we were saying, where a fee simple goes to other lands and then gets lands from those people, and then those inhabitants buy those lands back from them. Now they brought themselves into the system, and that's why they also get a remitter, right? They get a live record of birth, because in order to be a part of English law, you have to give up your lands. And everybody that's born on this planet has the right to a piece of land that he isn't taxed or anything else, and that he can grow his food and do what he wants with without having to worry about anything else. See what I'm getting at? So that's where all this that's where all of this comes into play, and this is the start of showing that the indenture, right? Because this is Littleton's time, like 1400s. So a remitter is the indenture in that time, because acceptance of the land tenure in the feudal system was you swearing homage to the king. So you actually went up and swore homage to the king, where now the monarchy gave the use to the government, and you go and swear to the government. You kind of see what I'm getting at? So we no longer swear to the monarchy, we swear to a government. And that's where the deed polls come in and things under deed. Because and that's the next person.
So, am I to understand it? Maybe I missed something, but the birth certificate would be like the remittance document?
The birth certificate, like the small one? Because there's a long...
The certificate of live birth, or whatever, is that what you're saying you're remitting?
Yes, the long form that your parents signed.
Yeah.
When you were born, that's the remitter. The birth certificate, the one that they sent you in the mail.
Right.
Right? That's the acceptance. That's the corporate person. And if you notice, even all those documents say that that's not your identification, because they're not. They're not ID.
But the remitter kind of is.
No, the remitter is an indenture. It's not ID.
I mean, well, you're talking about the live birth. The live birth is the live man, and the certificate of birth is the remitter. Did I mess that up?
Yeah, the long form. That's the contract.
The long form would be the remitter. And
yes, it's the contract.
The certificate is the acceptance.
That's right, because that's the long form is the contract. That's you granting the lands away, and that's them putting their seal, right? Because they put a corporate seal on it.
Right.
Right? And that means that everybody that signed that document is he stopped from disputing it. Right? Problem is, people are using that as ID instead of an indenture to be remitted.
Well, that's what we said. We had that. I had that authenticated, and you said that was maybe a mistake. And I thought that's just holding them to they're all saying that, yeah, we agree with this, and we're held them to it. On the long form, I had the long form authenticated.
Okay, yeah, you could, yeah, but that's the thing. They would have no problem authenticating it because it's already a deed poll.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yes.
So that's kind of what I meant by that is it's already, they can't dispute it as it is, so to get that authenticated is a breeze, right? Because everybody has to authenticate it because everybody that signed it is stopped from disputing it. So if the only people that can dispute it are the ones that signed it, how can they sign it? How can they dispute it if they're not allowed to?
But it doesn't. I mean, that's why I always thought was what we were talking about is maybe that was self-authenticating evidence, because when you take it in there, they know that you have the remittance, to claim your land. So it seems like it'd be a done deal. Okay,
and in that way, yeah, because that's exactly what a remitter would be doing, is going in and saying, guess what? You owe me this because it says it.
Right.
Right? But the thing is people forget that the contract and the acceptance and everything about it can be on multiple volumes and everything else. And acceptance can be an action. Right? So when we look at the contract is the the long form. That's what's getting you into, that's what's giving the lands to the government. So as soon as you accept that corporate person and start buying things by purchase and being seized of your lands, you've now, by deed poll, stated that you are being trustee of everything that you take in as corporate person because you can only take it as a use.
Right. Well, that's why they go and they change your name, so they won't use that name that's on the long form deed poll.
But it doesn't matter because that's not jurisdiction. You see what I'm getting at? So by you changing your name,
I'm getting tired, I guess. I don't really quite get that.
Changing your name doesn't change your jurisdiction. It doesn't change what you've agreed to.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that. But, I mean, they change your name. Like, for instance, say it's Social Security, whatever, I might have one name which matches the same name on the certificate of live birth. And then when I go in there and talk to them and said, hey, I have this and blah, 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 they send me another letter and it only has like an initial in my name. It's not the same name as that they have in that account. They change.
They're doing that just to play on everybody because everybody thinks the jurisdiction's a name. That's all just internal accounting, and that's all. They have to do what the law says and how the law states it. So if their law says that they have to write your name in purple letters and dot every I with a heart, that's what they have to do.
So they're not talking about a separate person by doing that? Separate?
Because the separate person has already been separated in the law by you being that corporate person. So they can't separate it. It's already been separated. Right? They can't create any new law for the common law. That's why the monarchy had to split the title and do this herself. Right? And then after she made up this use jurisdiction, then she gave only the use stuff for them to change and play around with, but only to a certain extent. See what I'm getting? Are you from Canada or where are you from? Where are you guys from?
I'm from Southern California.
From where?
Southern California.
Have you what was his name again?
Los Angeles.
Because it's the exact same thing for the United States. And have you read any of Kent's stuff?
Ken who?
Kent, Chancellor James Kent. He's kind of like Blackstone.
No.
Because this is for the U.S. It's going to give you the U.S. statutes and all that stuff. I'll even post a link to it. That's just the start of it. Don't ignore the footnotes. Make sure you look at all footnotes. Well, especially for the sentences that are important to you, right?
Ancient Hindus 6.
Yeah. Well, that's just if you keep scrolling up, it goes to the very top. It's like I just copied 2 paragraphs of that first page and pasted it in there. That's all. There's more of it. It's more of it to read at that link, but that's a good start of it. And everybody always brings you back to Blackstone, and then Blackstone and everybody else takes you to Coke and Littleton and all the same other books that we're reading from. So and that's even with all the judges and everything else go. They're the top quoted scholars. So. And you'll notice that when you actually have these books and you notice that the judges quote Coke and stuff like that, when you go and look at that page, you'll notice that the judge leaves out everything that has to do with reversion and only puts in the stuff that has to do with that actual citizen.
So the citizen, I know the citizen being the fee simple stuff, but when you're saying that he leaves out all the other stuff, well, so would we be proper in calling ourselves a reverter instead of the citizen?
What?
Would we be proper to say we're the reverter instead of the citizen?
You would be I believe the word would be remainder man.
Remainder.
Yes, until you actually have vested your estate, you'd be because you got to remember now, because remainder is you have a remainder of an estate left over, right? So when you give up the corporate person, you have your true ownership waiting in remainder, right? Because there's only 3 types of titles available in the English law: possession, remainder, and reversion. Right, and the people that get the government just to leave them alone, but they don't get their lands, they're stuck in remainder.
I see, yeah.
Right, and then those people that have gotten the governments to back off and everything else, if they actually got a deed of release and then finished the process, so all the people that have kind of gotten the government to back off them and stuff, they're basically sitting in a form of a remainder man, and you're going to start reading a lot about that in this stuff. And that's the same, right? Because we have to leave the same way we came in.
Well, when I sent you those documents from Quebec and stuff about canceling the legal person and stuff, and they're talking about a business there, but basically it's the same thing as a person, because they're creating a legal person. But I was wondering, I found that same thing in all these different states here in the States. At least 5 different states have that. And they say once you get out of that, you're no longer under those articles. And it would seem, and they give you a certificate of that, because they put a memorandum on the back of the certificate, your birth certificate, and then they give it back to you. So now you have, in the private, you have a note from them saying that you're no longer under those rules. And so it would seem like at that point you were free, but you still hadn't got granted any lands. And I don't
That's
know
right. That's basically a remainder situation, yeah. See, the only problem is with that release stuff is that I've never found any forms for that, and all the forms always mix it up with an actual, like a corporation that you created type of thing, right? Where the birth certificate, we actually didn't create it, so that's kind of where the issue falls into, is we actually didn't create it.
Right. There's no form for it. What there is they provide a letter, what you can basically write and request, or as a king makes his own wishes. So you make the wish on that.
Exactly, and that's basically what this common law doctrine states, and that's why we have to give notices, and we have to release those things first, because we can't abandon agreements.
That's one other thing I would ask you too. Is you said, of course, you're going to release the person. Excuse me. But what else do you have to release? I mean, I know you have to give it all back, but are you talking about doing the same thing to car titles and house titles and everything else? Any other kind of title that they gave you?
Well, there's you have to release all the things first before you can quit your job, right? It's like having a work truck. You have to take your work truck back before you can quit the job.
Right. I get you.
So,
well, if you don't have, I don't have crap, so.
And you don't have anything to worry about. You're in the same position.
I have that certificate. That's all I have.
Right. So then
maybe the social account.
Yeah. So yeah, you're pretty much in the same position I am, where it's moot for us because we don't have anything, right? And that's the thing. The people who have lots, they should look into the Like in Canada, we got the Canadian Ownership Determination Act that explains how all that stuff how all the accounting gets done and everything else. So when one that has assets actually looks through the entire thing and gets the understanding, they just have to make the decisions for themselves for how they want their assets to come out.
Right? Well, I'll send those things to the group. I can't post anything on the forum because it didn't give me a password, or if it did, my phone's not taking it because now my phone has been kind of on the blink. So maybe I got it, but I did it twice and I never got a password sent to me. So I'll have to see what's going on with that.
I fixed that for you. You should be able to use your password and log in now.
Oh, okay. Great. I'll look into that. I couldn't do it before. I was waiting for it to come on the phone and it didn't come.
Oh, I messed with a couple of settings a few days ago, so hopefully I fixed it now. I got to keep an eye on it and make sure that.
Hopefully I'll remember what password I use now.
Well,
I think I know. But.
If you forget, you can just go and it's all automatic. It'll remake you another one and everything. So.
All right. Hey, well, thank you so much. I'm going to kind of bail out because I'm just getting kind of brain worn because you're so great at this, and I so much appreciate it. So.
Anytime.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Like I said, it's just been so great. I just can't thank you enough. So, but I'm just kind of burnt.
It was a good chat.
It was fantastic.
Excellent.
Yeah. There's so much to take in, a lot of little ideas and everything. And I want to still hear about the deed poll because I still didn't quite get that. But
the picture's posted right there.
Okay.
It's basically it's just stating that anybody that's under the age of capacity, they can't sign a deed poll, right? And that it would be an indenture, right? Because it's something. Right, because that person can't convey the interest, so other people are conveying it on your behalf.
So a deed poll, in a simple way, is a contract. It's an agreement that you can sign that you agree to.
That's right, but you're signing it as trustee, not as true owner. So the people that signed your live record of birth, the live record of birth is the contract to the land. You didn't sign it. Right? You accepted that by being the corporate person. So as soon as you quit the corporate person, all those people, right? That means the government and your parents can't dispute your contract. That's why I keep telling everybody every level of this, your opponents are actually stopped from disputing any of it. They can't dispute any of it, right? Like when you're doing your release, how can Co-op tell you or Costco tell you that that you have to keep working for them? They can't, right? So once you realize that there's actually a law to stop the government from saying that you have to be their corporate citizen, you can, right? They're stopped there. Right, and then 6.N, right? It makes it even more powerful, right? And then with the writ of entries, because once we realize who the fee simple are, and that we're remitting our indenture, right? And all those that have signed it are stopped from disputing it. That's the full FIE, and the decisors are all right because the government signed it, and they're stopped from disputing it. Well, who did the government give a license to? Under a use for that thing that that the government has, right? Can I see what I'm getting at? So it's just making sure that all these people, as it goes down the line, that the law is annexed so they don't have a choice. That's really what it boils down to.
Well, this return, which they call withdrawal of registered lands, okay, you registered in and it gets withdrawn. Basically, the whole thing about that is you turn over that certificate endorsed on the back and turn it over to them, and then they give you back a certificate of withdrawal. But I was thinking, but then how do you go get your lands? You turn over the certificate. In other words, you have to do it. You don't want to give them your certificate and sign it over to them until you get your lands.
Actually, no. It's having that certificate that is making you subject.
Oh. Well,
right? Everybody that wants to show their live record of birth and they're not vesting that title and returning it is saying that they are that person and they're accepting the agreement. Why do you think the judges laugh and then just walk out of the courtroom, right? And then come back because now you've changed your mind, right? And now you're onto a different subject because you think he's come back in a different capacity when he's just playing duck with you. Right?
Because they gave you in that 1953 paper that I sent to you, the person asked for the withdrawal of lands and they granted that and sealed it and everything, and then they gave him back a certificate of withdrawal and cancellation. So now he has another certificate, but it's the proof that he's been withdrawn, and I guess that's what you would take into the court to claim your lands. Make sense?
Yeah, I get.
In other words, you withdraw. You say, "I want to withdraw." I want to get my lands back or whatever, and then they say, "Okay, well, give us your certificate and endorse it on the back." Then they do that, and then you say, "Now I want proof that the receipt that I did that." So they give you another certificate saying that you have a certificate of withdrawal and cancellation. So yes, you've done it, and we agreed to it, but there's nothing changes hands. I shouldn't say that. Because what they did is they gave him back the title to the lands endorsed on the back with that memorandum. So therefore now he has proof that he owns that particular land because he had a piece of land, so that land was now his without being inside the system. It wasn't in fee simple anymore.
Okay, in order to get the answer to that, we have to look at the jurisdiction on which the people that need to be restricted about that. So,
he had no rid of prohibition. That's one thing he didn't have.
Yeah. So as soon as that remit, right? Because the reason why it needs to be registered as once you removed your lands and everything from their system, that confirmation that you're talking about, it's called confirmation in law. And that comes from the registration of title. So basically, you're going to get a judgment by the judge, and that's your deed of release. That's your proof.
Okay.
Right?
And
for
so
you,
where is the actual land? Isn't that written in that decree also?
Yes, because you've got it written in your claim. So now you have a judgment on your claim for your lands, right? Saying that those are yours, but there's still another catch. That's for your jurisdiction, right? So what about the people in the fee simple jurisdiction? They need to know so when they bring up your name that you're actually exempt, right? So that's when the judge goes and registers, right? Your indefeasible title, right, on land titles, right, and then registers you into a private act of legislation. So when your name comes up, right, boom, it just comes up as, right, you're gotten this title from them, and that's it, and that's gonna describe to their subject, whether it's the cop or whatever, on what they can and can't do to you, because you can't tell them that, because you're not their boss. So that's why we always have to go to a judge in the English law, because they don't own anything. There's always some superior that has a piece of paper that he reads from that tells him what capacity you're in, what he can and can't do to you. And that's always written by a judge or the queen.
Well, that's great. That's going to be great for the next call. Can't wait to talk about that.
So, Maitland's Papers would be another good one to download, because he actually goes through a bunch of private acts and these different writs, and he actually goes through the whole court case and explains what both sides did and how it all turned out and why it turned out the way it did. So that's another good resource, is that the Maitland's papers.
So much great stuff.
So yeah, we've all just been looking in equity. As soon as we all start looking in the law for the donor and in common law, it'll be endless. Like when I do internet, there's so much information I can't even look at it all. So I just decided to deal with the top scholars from each area of that time, right? Like Coke for his time, Littleton for his, and Blackstone for his, right? Mansfield does pretty good for kind of in between Coke and Blackstone and stuff. So
it's kind of amazing after you read this stuff for a long enough time, you kind of become like a little mini expert in it, because you can see it. You can see things that you couldn't see before. And more you know.
And that's really all it is just understanding jurisdictions and the capacities, and realizing, oh, when they're talking about heir, it means that if he's simple, and successor means now we're talking about common law, right? So just by knowing these little kind of these key things and how jurisdictions play out, right?
Holy.
So
okay, well, thank you so much, and I'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks.
Everybody, good night.
Bye.
Ciao.
You want to chat about anything, Justin?
No, I'm good. I'm fried as well.
Hey, buddy. What about you? Or Mrs. C? Oops.
Oh, I think I've had a bit much.
Okay, I'm just making sure everybody's...
No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I came on late, but I thoroughly enjoyed it because there's a lot of little nuances that I really didn't comprehend.
That's okay. It'll be put up on the website sometime today or tomorrow, type of thing.
It's just thanks for all the reading and research and the struggles that you've had to be burdened with.
That's a part of the path. So
Yeah, I believe it is.
getting out of the matrix is not... The movie is actually... It describes it well. So...
Yeah. That's why I can't actually watch The Matrix. So I watched the first one, and I watched the second one, and then I watched the third one, and at the third one or whatever, I cut it off. I said, I can't do any more of this. This is too weird. So I said, no, not gonna do it. But we watched Jupiter Ascending too. We thought that was really fascinating.
Which one?
Jupiter Ascending.
Yes, that was another good one. Yeah.
And I could tolerate that a little bit. I have a visual issue. I can't handle flashing things, so that's fine.
Okay.
I guess if I watched a movie in black and white, maybe that's what I should have done. Made it black and white. No, this was just terrific. Really terrific.
I might give my mind a rest and go watch Fight Club. Probably end up falling asleep, but it's 1:30 in the morning
Like
now.
a little bit of violence, huh?
To be fair, it's more for the hidden message for the character, because it's a split personality, isn't it? So it's essentially as we are, like, you know, and I want to see how it describes it as well, because Brad Pitt's the fighter side, isn't he? He's like the let's just say donor, and then the office guy, he's the fee simple subject. He goes work 9 till 5, and he doesn't realise that it's both of them are him, does he?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
I'm gonna go try catch all the clues. But yeah, thanks again, William. Nice speaking with you all. I'll leave you to it.
Good chat.
Thank you. Love you all.